Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learn this truth from the rule well. Peace and salutation to the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom. Come to you back with another lesson through the Spirit, and I'm going to entitle this one, These Americans are out of touch with reality, because majority of these people here in America, the United States of America, which we that are in this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding know that it's Babylon the Great, spoken about in the scriptures. We know that this place is going to be destroyed, but majority of these people, of these Americans, these Babylonians, they can't see that because they were ultimately blinded by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. They were blinded by the God of this world, by the God of this world, which is Satan. That's why they can't see everything that's going around them, from the economy collapsing, the wars and rumors of wars, the power shifting, that the dollar is done with, that this place that we call America is pretty much done for, because these people are plugged into the matrix by the way of the different social media, the bread and circus, the so-called American dream, which, you know, most of these Americans are dreaming. They're in that dream state, not really awake to the reality that's going around them. Because this place is about to be destroyed, but first it's going to be hit by all these different plagues, by famine, pestilences, the collapse of the dollar, the collapse of this current system, the stock market crash, the house market crash, the car market crash, all these different types of plagues that are going to be hit here in America, just like Egypt, just like in the time of Egypt, in the time of ancient Egypt, during the time of Pharaoh. It was the same thing, that place was plagued by different plagues, one plague after another, but eventually that final plague, which was the death of the firstborn, that was it. You know, that led to Pharaoh, you know, kicking the nation of Israel out of the land of Egypt. You know, and it's going to be the same thing here in America. This place is getting hit by all these different plagues. The infrastructure is collapsing. You got bridges falling down. You got the streets, you know, full of potholes and sinkholes. You got the morals on these people is worse than ever. You know, but yet they're still asleep. They're still plugged into the matrix. Still worried about social media followers, worried about TikTok, worried about Instagram, worried about Facebook, Twitter, you know, YouTube subscribers, you know, just all manners of folly that really don't pertain to what's really important, which is this truth, this true knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, especially the nation of Israel that comprised of these so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. They're the main ones that are asleep, because these Edomites, these heathens, they know what time it is. They know that this place is collapsing. They know that their government has been lying to them. But yet, our people, the nation of Israel, they still have hope in this place. They're still hoping for America to be healed. You know, but we know that this place isn't going to be healed. That it's going to be torn down more and more to the point of no return. And we're at that point right now where all these different tariffs going on. You know, Donald Trump going against China, you know, with the trade war. All these things are going to lead to shipments, or it's already starting to happen, but it's going to get to the point where there's going to be no shipments coming in, you know, Lord's will. And that's going to lead to all these grocery shelves to be empty, you know, no food in the groceries, no water. And that's going to lead people to be bugged out. But right now, they're not in the mindset that that's going to happen, because they're too distracted by the cares of this world, by the bread of the circus, by their jobs, careers, by what LeBron James is doing, by what Cardi B is doing. Pretty much, especially our people, the nation of Israel, they're way too far gone. That's why Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is going to destroy the 2/3, because it don't matter how much you rebuke them, how much you tell them what the truth is. Ultimately, it's not meant for them, because ultimately Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai wants them destroyed. He doesn't want them to get this truth. He wants them to remain asleep. He wants them to take that charagma. But the elect will know what time it is. We, they're in the know, that have been given the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, We know what times we're in. We know that we're in the times of all hell is about to break loose. We're in a time of Jacob's trouble kicking off at any moment. That this current system being ran by the U.S. dollar, that any given moment it could collapse. You know, power grid outage, a stock market crash. You know, we know that it's just one event or two from just all hell breaking loose. But these people don't see that. That's why they're not preparing mentally, physically, you know, especially the nation of Israel. They're not preparing spiritually. You know, some of them are, but ultimately that's not going to be able to deliver you. What's going to be able to deliver you is that you're covered under the blood of Yahweh Shai. If you're going to have that mark of exemption, written about in Ezekiel chapter 9 and verse 4. You know, the rest of our people, they're not going to have the Dawa, the mark of exemption, 2/3 of the nation of Israel. Because 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're marked for destruction. Because ultimately they're still in that slumber state. They're still asleep, not knowing what's going around about them. You can see it in these people by the way they move. You know, they move so recklessly, carelessly, like nothing matters. You got inflation at an all-time high, but yet these people don't know what time it is. They don't know that America's about to be destroyed, that this place is going to collapse and it's not going to be healed. You know, because ultimately this truth, this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding was hidden to 2/3 of our people. And even those that know that they're Israelites, that have been woken up to the fact, or those who have fell off the truth, ultimately they weren't part of the elect, because they would have been, you know, part of Yahweh Bashmiel Shai, that they would have remained. But even us that are still in this knowledge, wisdom, and this understanding, you know, we hope to be a part of that elect. We hope to be a part of that number. We hope to receive mercy, because ultimately that's what's going to come down to, if we're going to receive that mercy from Yahweh Bashmiel Shai. You know, not based on how many works we do, you know, how many lessons we put out a day. We could put out 1,000 lessons a day. You know, we go to camp, you know, every day out the week, but let alone, you know, our righteousness is as filthy rags. Ultimately, we need the mercy from Yahweh Bashmiel Shai. And these 2/3 of the nation of Israel aren't going to receive mercy, because ultimately they're out of touch with reality. You know, they don't know what time there is. They don't know what time it is. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 3. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid unto them that are lost. And who are the ones who are lost, who don't know what time it is, who are out of touch with reality, stuck in the matrix, plugged into the matrix, taking the blue pill instead of the so-called red pill, is 2/3 of the nation of Israel. The so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and Israelite foreigners that may look like the heathens, but ultimately the lineage goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These are the only ones who can, you know, receive salvation, because that's who salvation for. Is only for the nation of Israel. It's not for no other nation. You know, fuck what these heathens say. These heathens don't matter. These so-called white people, these so-called Indians. You know, this truth isn't for them. It's meant for the nation of Israel, but 2/3 aren't going to receive it. They're going to remain in that lost state, you know, till they get destroyed, till they get their judgment. Because a lot of them, they're going to perish by the sword, perish by famine. And those who don't, you know, they're going to go down to Esau, Edom, go down to Egypt for help. And they're going to take that charagma, that MOTB, that microseah. Verse 4, in whom the God of this world had blinded the minds of them which believe not. And who is the God of this world is Satan. And who has made himself to be a God. You know, he wants to exalt himself above the Most High, is this devil Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man. He's the one that you know, wants to be like the Most High, but ultimately he's gonna fail miserably. He's not gonna win, you know, because it's already written that victory is of Yahweh Bashmiel Shai. You know, that's why these 2/3 don't believe. You know, they don't believe in the prophecies. They don't believe that there's going to be a Jacob's trouble. They don't believe that the elect are going to get delivered by the way of the chariots, by the way of getting beamed up. It says right here, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, who is the image of Yahweh, should shine unto them. And who has the light of Yahweh Bashmiel Shai, the light of Yahweh Shai shine upon, is the elect. because his blood is only going to cover the elect on this side. The rest of our people, the 2/3, they're not covered by the blood of Yahushua. They're going to have to be held accountable by all the sins, all the iniquity they've done in this life and their past lives. That's why we hope to be a part of that elect, so we can be pardoned, so we can have our sins blotted out. But the rest of the 2/3, they're not going to have their sins blotted out. They're going to have to be held accountable by the standard of the law. And that's something that we don't want, because we know that we're through. We know that we're done. We offend in one law, we offend and we break them all. So we know that we're through in the manners of the law, that we need mercy. We need the mercy of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Verse 5, for we preach not ourselves, but Mashiach Yahushai the Lord, and ourselves your servants for Yahushua's sake. And we're not out here exalting ourselves, pushing that, oh, we're so righteous, look how many laws we keep. Keep the law, wear your fringes at. No, we preach that ultimately we're under the grace of Yahushua, that we're not going to get every single law perfect, but we offend less. We keep the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of our ability, because some of us still have to work on the Sabbath. We can't put our woman away in another house when she's on her period. We don't know what we're eating. We try our best to stay away from abominable foods, but yet we don't know. That's why we need mercy. But these other Israelite camps, these Christian churches, these other Israelite camps that love to push that you got to keep the law 100%. And then the Christian churches, they're the complete opposite. They're pushing that you don't have to keep no law, that you could pop another man's woman, that you could be a mo, that you can smoke weed, and all sorts of manners of false doctrine that Yahweh Bashem Yahushua is not dealing with. It says right here, verse 6, for the Most High, who had commanded the light to shine out of darkness, hath shined in our hearts, to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of Yahweh in the face of Yahushua HaMashiach. And that's that light that came into our minds, the renewing of our minds, the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, the word, washing our filthy ass minds from all the things that we used to do in the world, all the false doctrines, the philosophies that we used to believe in, Christianity, Catholicism, Islam, Buddhism. Ultimately, when we came into the true knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, we knew that all those false religions that we were following before were all false doctrine. That they were all bullshit. Verse 7, for we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of the Most High and not of us. And that's right, it's not of us. Ultimately, this truth was given by Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, because ultimately Yahweh Bashem Yahushua picked out his elect before the foundations of the earth. We just hope to be a part of that number. Lord willing, we endure to the end. It's all about predestination. Because a lot of these Christians and these other Israelite camps, they love to push that they chose the Most High, especially Eve. They think that they could go directly to the Most High. And even these other camps, they skip Yahushua. They skip the mediator. They skip Yahushua's sacrifice, his resurrection. And ultimately, Yahushua he's not vouching for them. He's not going to vouch for them because ultimately they denied him on this side. So he's going to deny him in front of Yahweh, the Heavenly Father. It says right here, First John chapter 2 and verse 15, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. And that's right, the elect, we hate this world. We hate this place. We're constantly sighing and crying for all the abominations that are being done to midst thereof. We're crying to be delivered out of here. So we don't love this place. We don't love our lives to the end. But the 2/3, they love it. They love it here. They love it in America, Babylon the Great. That's why they're plugged into the matrix, consumed by the lust of the flesh, with the cares of the world, consumed by their women, having their head up her ass, having their head up their job's ass, careers, whatever it may be. They love this world. They don't hate it. They want this place to continue. If any man loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. That's right. These 2/3, they love this world, and that's how ultimately Yahweh Bashem Yahushua is not dealing with them. And even these other Israelite camps, these Christian churches, they love this place. That's why they constantly want to build here, build up the land, build up the generational wealth, because in their minds they think that this place is going to go on forever. that this place is never going to be destroyed, but sadly they're mistaken. You know, you got these other Israelite camps and these Christian churches, you know, still trying to build in a burning house, but this place is through. And that's how you know Yahweh Shemi Shai is not dealing with them. Verse 16, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes, the pride of the life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And all these things of the world that these 2/3 love, Yahweh Shemi Shai is not with that. Because ultimately, that's of the world, that's of this current age, current world, ran by the devil, Esau, Edom. You know, that's all under the vibration of this devil. Verse 17, and the world passeth away, and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of Yahweh Shemi Shai abideth forever. And who are the ones who are doing the will of Yahweh Shemi Shai in truth and sincerity are the hopeful elect. You know, the rest of the 2/3, they're not serving Yahweh Shemi Shai. They're not building up that spiritual bank account. They're not trying to receive mercy from Yahweh Shemi Shai. You know, because they're too caught up in the world. They're too far gone. You know, black culture, you know, Mexican culture, Puerto Rican culture, whatever it may be, 2/3 of our people are gone. They're too far gone to fix them. So they're gonna have to be put to death and be brought back to the loins of the elect. You know, because ultimately the elect, the 1/3, starting with the 144,000, and the rest of the large multitude, those are the ones who are going to receive that deliverance, the salvation, those new bodies, the new covenant. Lord willing, we're a part of that number, you know, on the first go around. It's 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. That's right. You know, the devil, Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, he's not going to get over the elect, because we know what his devices are, you know, the devices of the devil are. You know, he constantly finds new ways to lead the children of Israel astray. You know, black culture, you know, twerking, feminism, the alphabet agenda, modes, whatever it may be. 2/3 of our people, they fall to these devices. And ultimately, they're going to fall to that final test, the MOTB, the micro C-hip, the Karagma, because they were too far gone to know what it was, to be aware what were the consequences of taking that Karagma. So that's why 2/3 of our people, they're going to get destroyed, because, you know, Satan got an advantage over them because they were ignorant of his devices. But the elect, you know, they're not ignorant of his devil devices. They know what he's going to come down with, and he's going to come down with that micro C-hip, that great wrath. Because ultimately, Yahweh Shemi Shai put the spirit on 2/3 of the nation of Israel to be asleep. You know, because a lot of us, when we came into this truth, you know, we were just amazed how many times we told our family, you know, friends that we have in the world, co-workers, whatever it may be, about the truth. But ultimately, they couldn't get it. You know, they rejected it because it wasn't meant for them. This is Isaiah 29 and verse 9. Stay yourselves and wonder. Cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. And that's 2/3 of the nation of Israel. They're drunken. They're drunken off the wine of Babylon. They're drunken with that Babylonian juice, with the cares of the world. They're plugged into the matrix. You know, they're still plugged in. They haven't been unplugged, and ultimately they're going to remain plugged till they get destroyed, till they get those missiles, or they die of famine, die of sword, die of pestilence, or natural disasters, whatever it may be. They're going to remain asleep till they get destroyed. But in the next go around, in the kingdom of heaven, when they're brought back to the loins of the elect, that's when they're going to know, hey, oh shit, I was asleep. You know, I didn't know any better. And even if they didn't do any better. They were still out here being, you know, doing iniquity, even after they got rebuked by the prophets. Verse 10, for the Lord Yahweh Shemi Shai had poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and that closes your eyes, the prophets and your rulers, the seers that be covered. And that's ultimately a spirit that was put on them by Yahweh Shemi Shai, to remain asleep, to not get it, to not repent and turn it back to Yahweh Shemi Shai, to cover the eyes even of these Israelite camp leaders, these other Israelite camp leaders. They're pushing false doctrine. And these Christian church pastors, you know, they're all ultimately being deceived and are deceiving, because the deceiver and the deceiver is, because they're under that strong delusion that they should believe a lie. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 11. And for this cause the Most High shall send them a strong delusion that they should believe a lie. Verse 12, and they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. And who are the ones who believe, that America is going to be healed, that this place is the land of the free, that everything's going to be okay, that the American dream is achievable. That's 2/3 of our people, and these damn heathens, which they don't really matter, but they're still playing to the matrix, not really being aware of what's going on, still going to these 9-to-5s, still, going to college, all manners of madness that just it's folly. This is Romans 11 and verse 7. What then? Israel had not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election had obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Those are ultimately the ones who have received the true knowledge, wisdom, and understanding are the elect. The rest of the 2/3, some of them know that they're Israelites, but they're still out here being that old man, not really changing their ways, still being plugged into the matrix, still out of touch with reality, not knowing that this place is about to be destroyed. But the elect are in the know. They've been unplugged from the matrix. And ultimately, they're doing their best to make their calling and election sure, to receive that mercy from Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. But that's pretty much the point. I pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Kakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Following this truth from the well. Peace, salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say Shalom.